Hello everyone, welcome to the session of AI, and today we are excited to have Swati ma'am with us who will be delivering a powerful session on AI and MCP. If you are looking to stay ahead in the world of MCP, this is a session you won't want to miss. So without any further delay, I would like to invite speaker ma'am to take us on the exciting journey of AI. Ma'am, you can continue.
Sure. Is there a thumbs up or so that the folks can use? Maybe just to know that I'm audible. If anyone can comment that I'm audible. Okay, I see a comment. Okay. Okay. Okay, cool. I think we have the folks and are able to hear me. Um, let me also share my screen and then we can get started. Just give me one moment. Okay. Team, please confirm that you are able to see my screen. So, hello everyone. Good morning, firstly. Thank you all for joining this session on MCP, which is the Model Context Protocol. My name is Swati. I work as a tech consultant in Microsoft, and today's session is basically a part of the season of AI organized by our very well known community, which is the ADC, Azure Developer Community. A big thank you to this community who is trying to focus on helping developers understand emerging AI technologies in a practical and approachable way. In this session, what we want to talk about is MCP, like why it exists, what it is, and how it enables modern AI agents to work with real world systems like databases, APIs, documentations, and many other things. And if you're very completely new to MCP, don't worry. We will try to cover the basic fundamentals, everything that's related to MCP, and we will slowly build up to the real world scenarios. So that is the overall idea behind this session. So let me move to the next slide and we'll see the agenda for today. So the very first agenda would be to see what is MCP, and also we would want to know how it works, how we want to use this MCP considering today's fast moving world, right? And we will also see different features of MCP, which is in the very first place, which includes multiple things like clients, servers, tools, then there is resources and there's prompts. After that, we will go a bit deeper into real world scenarios, which is the very good use case, which is the Microsoft Learn MCP server. We will also see a different aspects of how Microsoft has bring in this MCP server to provide a context into their official documentations. And then lastly, we will also see demos. So I would be splitting the demo in particularly three parts. I will talk about that more in the upcoming slides. But the idea is we develop our own MCP server, right? That's what we want to get to know. And before I actually begin, I also want to share one link with you, which is a demo link. Let me go back. I'm not sure where I can paste this, but let me paste it here. Team, if you can share this link with the audience, that would be really great. So today's demo will be more about Python. So we will use Python SDK for our demo. But let's move on and we will talk about different aspects of the MCP first. So agent coding, right? I also want to know how many of you have used agents to do your coding, to develop a code. If you can give a small thumbs up or anything. Right. See, agent coding is all about how you automate your coding experience, right, in your developer environment. Because asking an agent today to give you, for example, I have a logic in my mind, but if I want to just ask the agent, you give me a snippet of this logic. So your prompt basically will let the agent know this is what you are expecting when it comes to you want to code. And for an agent coding, there has been a massive shift in the AI assisted coding space, right? Previously we used to interact with GHCP by just asking questions, right? Please complete the code what I've started with, or maybe just edit a file. Or the copilot also can be turned very useful when you ask certain questions, like for example, plan your code, execute, give some test cases to execute some iterations, or debug your code. If there is an issue with your code, you can ask to help for debugging it. But then this alone is not enough for your agent to be effective, right? There has to be some real time context. Now if I consider an example of human, right? If there is something that I have to search, but if I don't know where to search for those, for the answers, then I don't have the right context. That is how an agent is also, because agent will try to connect to something called as LLM, which is your large model. And this LLM will be only published based on some training data set, which is limited, right? You your LLM should have a vast context of to the right knowledge base, and this knowledge base is actually given by your MCP, and that's where this MCP comes in to bridge this gap between your code, your agent, which is your client, and then your LLM, right? So this is how this bridge or this gap will be covered using MCP. And that's why, if I go to the very next slide, that's why MCP came into picture. And if you look at the timeline, right? So developers have been working to come up with solutions to integrate with different external tools and capabilities, right? But then every every new integration, let's say it could be any integration with your database or any external data source, every such integration required a custom implementation, or building a custom extension or plugin. But this integration required increased maintenance, security, and it is very difficult to scale, right? Because if you're developing an app and you want to connect to different data sources or services, you need to install several extensions, open several web pages, and maybe build a custom solution. But this integration becomes a chaos. It's, if you look at this, right, it's an integration chaos. So to cover or to recover from this chaos is where MCP comes in. So you don't have to, maybe just just don't have to build in this custom extensions for all the external integrations that you require. You bring in this middle person, you bring in this mediator to kind of integrate with different tools or the different external data sources. That's where MCP comes in, right? And folks, yes, I will be taking Q&A. Maybe one checkpoint I will have towards the maybe in the middle of the session, and then one last Q&A session we will have towards the end of the session, so that we try to save some time, because this is a 1 hour dedicated session. So I just want to be cautious of everyone's time, right? So yes, just a small disclaimer. Coming back to the slide. So yes, MCP. This is the main reason why we wanted to bring in MCP. What So we'll just talk about what exactly an MCP is. MCP is a protocol, it's an open protocol that standardizes AI applications to provide context to LLMs, large language models. And it MCP servers provide a very standard way to connect the LLMs to your data, your tools, or your resources, and without needing to build a custom extension. As I just mentioned in the previous slide, right? A simple way of thinking it as like a universal adapter that you use, right? See, it's mentioned in here. It's the USB-C for your AI applications. So basically, you have a universal adapter which you use to connect your chargers based on the socket that you have. So that's how it is. It's universal. So that's why we call it as a USB-C for the AI. Going to the next slide. So MCP, this is again model context protocol. It was created by Anthropic, and it is now being adopted and evolved by the broader AI community. So it's a boom in today's AI journey that everyone is trying to adapt to, and it is very important, right? With the fast moving world, um, you come across so many technologies and tools, but then how relevant that tool becomes as part of your daily day-to-day activities in your work, that is pretty much important, right? Okay, parts of MCP. So MCP is just a bigger picture, right? There are components to it, which is something that we need to understand, and we will also look at the demo for sure in the upcoming slides. So the major three parts which I want to talk about is first your host, then comes the clients, and then the servers, right? So these, if you want to look at like a tree hierarchy of it, then it is composed of host, clients, and servers. So right, so your host could be your Visual Studio Code, where you actually write, or it's called the environment where you develop your code, right? So that's where your VS Code comes in. Not only VS Code, it could be your Copilot Studio or any other IDE, right, which is compatible to access data through MCP. So that becomes your host, right? And client, for example, is your AI agent. So in the example that we will see today is the Visual Studio Code. Inside that, we would be having GHCP, which is your GitHub Copilot, and that will act as the AI agent to basically connect to your MCP server. um, and last is your servers. So this is where you kind of expose your MCP to different tools, and these tools could be anything, like wherever your MCP is hosted, right? It could be on a local machine, it could be on Azure. So there are n number of platforms to host your MCP. So yeah, and of course you can build your own servers. You can build your own MCP server. For example, you can connect directly to your database and analyze schemes, pull in information from GitHub repos for any small issues or even a PR request, right? You can automate end-to-end testing. So all this is possible if you have your AI agent um talking to your MCP server, and that's possible. Right. So the very first part of the demo that I wanted to cover is basically how you set up your environment, right, to build your MCP server. So we'll go through that part first. Maybe what I'll do is I also talked about your yeah, this is what I was talking about. So this is a GitHub repo link that I've shared with you, and it's specific for Python. Towards the end of this session, I will also share the links which you could try for, let's say, if you want to build your MCP server using Java, or if you want to do it with C#. So there are multiple links. I would be sharing that towards the end, but today's demo would be dedicated to Python. So yes, so if you look at this particular repository, there are, so you will see some some read-only files, which is your part 1, part 2, and part 3. And the very first part is the prerequisites for the demo. So how you will kind of set up your environment. So it is very much related to Python. So first thing is you need to have clone your repository. So basically you can go ahead and clone this to your VS Code. You can have the project set up. Next is Visual Studio Code. Yes, you need to have VS Code installed on your machine. Then you need to have Python installed. So it would be good if it's if the version is about 3.12. And then you can also try to have the Python extension. Let me go to the VS Code and maybe show it to you. So this is how I've set up my VS Code. I've cloned the repository. If you look at towards the left, the project name is Let's Learn MCP Python, right? And this is the same code that you saw just now in the GitHub repo that I just showed, correct? And one very important thing, apart from VS Code, I also have the Python installed. Apart from that, you can also go ahead and install your Python extension. That's one thing you can do that can help you build your Python code for MCP. Apart from that, we also have the GitHub Copilot. Just give me a moment. So if you see, this is already in the agent mode. If you see, I am running this GitHub Copilot in the agent mode. This is how your client for your MCP will be enabled. And if you look at the LLM model that I'm using today is Cloud Sonnet, but there are multiple options available. You have GPT and you have other Cloud Sonnet versions as well. But if you want to choose any one, but today I would be using Cloud Sonnet 4.5. So that was one, and couple of other things. Let me go back to the other screen. Apart from that, I already have this everything set up, so I will be just giving a walkthrough of what all things are required for you to start developing it. So another thing is you need to have UV installed. So this is like so basically UV and virtual environment, right? You need to have this so that if you have any dependency on certain packages which is only specific to a Python version, this virtual environment will give you that isolated environment to run your code with those dependent package versions, right? So you can use this particular page to do all these installations, correct? um, Another thing is if I go back to my code, um, if you see, I also have created the virtual environment. So if you see here in the drop down, um, you will find this is the one, the virtual environment that I've created, MCP hyphen env. So if you see my console, the terminal, it's already using the virtual environment. So I can run any commands related to Python or any other commands which I want to have it in the isolated environment. So this is how I've activated my MCP environment. So if you also look in here, if you want to activate this, right, if you want to get into this mode, all you need to do is run this activate.ps1. So this PowerShell command will actually activate your virtual environment. So all these details are present in this. If you go here, right, this is how you create your virtual environment, and you can activate using this script, which is your activate.ps1. And then lastly, you do a UV sync. So why you do this? Because you want to have those dependent packages, right? For MCP, there are certain packages that you would require. For example, fast MCP is one of the important packages that you are going to use in MCP. So if you look in here, you will have, once you do the UV sync, you will get all these packages installed again. So like for example, I just mentioned fast MCP. So all these dependent packages will be required for you to import into your code. So uh, on a high level, these would be the dependencies that you would need. What exactly we are going to see after this setup, right? This is very important. So what the very first thing that we'll look at is about a study buddy app. So this is where you will get to see the different components of MCP that we are going to use. So basically, this study buddy app is an interactive learning application that will use MCP basically in the backend. So when you give a prompt to the agent, it will go to this study buddy app MCP server and will provide you a personalized Python programming exercises, right? So basically, if you are a beginner to Python, it will give you those exercises if for based on your level. So it could be either beginner, it could be either intermediate, advanced. So we'll see that a deep dive, but just an overview that this is what we are going to look at from a part of the first demo. We are going to build a study buddy MCP server, right? So, let's go back to the slide. Okay. Okay, MCP. So we just want to deep dive a bit, right? Now, before we look at the actual Study Buddy app, we want to take a look at what are the different features that we are going to use as part of MCP. So that is very important. So first thing is your MCP client. Um, so MCP client, as I just said, is your GHCP, right? Your GitHub Copilot would be your MCP client that actually goes and interacts with your MCP server. So it invokes different tools. It queries your resources. It interpolates prompts. So when you think about MCP client or MCP server, there are three things you need to keep in mind. One is tools, second is your resources, and third is your prompts. So these three things you will definitely see when we also do the demo, right? So what exactly is a tool, right? So tool is something that is completely model controlled, right? Which LLM model that you choose. So this LLM model calls these particular tools to perform certain actions, and these actions could be anything, like it including some packages. It might include some retrieving data, run some test for the code, update DB records, or give some output in the JSON format. So any task that you want to perform, that you want to get the agent to be done, right? That is somewhere the tools will come into picture, and it is totally handled by the model, your LLM model, right? Next comes the resources, and we say that it is application controlled. Why? Because let's say now the Study Buddy app, for example, right? This is an application. Now, from where it should find or where the data should be exposed from, right? It That is very important, from where it should get those data. Now in this example that we are going to see, is the data that it will get is from the JSON files. But this is just for this demo, but in real time example, it could be any database, right? Because first you have your agent layer, second you have your LLM layer, and then you have your MCP layer. But in real time, right, in enterprise solutions, when we try to design this, so your MCP layer will not be actually directly talking to your data sources. So in the real time, when we have a client environment, we don't give the direct access to the MCP to your data sources. Either it could be through a so usually we try to introduce a new layer which is called a data integration layer, and this data integration layer ensures that the MCP talks to your backend data sources through an API or so, right? It's more of a secure contact that it tries to make, and that's why we introduce a secure layer called a data integration layer. So that's how it happens in the enterprise level. But in today's demo, if you'll see, we are not even using a database, but today we'll use a data source which is actually from a JSON file. So when you get the chance to do this demo or try out this demo, you will see, when you look at the files, you will see that you will have some JSON files in your code. So yeah, I was talking about resources. So definitely this helps the model work with the real world context efficiently. And coming to the prompts, so this is the third part of it. So yes, prompts are those, for example, now in this code, right? If I write something here, right? what what is the Python version, right? So this is where you actually give the command to your agent. So this is what is called as prompt, right? And it is very important when it comes to what kind of prompt you are giving. But the prompt that we are talking about here, right, this is something user controlled again, because the user will be giving the prompt into the client. And the idea behind having this prompts in MCP is you have a predefined templates for AI interactions. So let's say it could be anything like some kind of transcription, some like summarizing your transcripts or documenting some Q&A. So for these kind of tasks, if you have some templates for the prompts, it is easier for the user to reuse those prompts. And that's where we want to come up with something called as predefined prompt templates. And this is the third part of MCP. So that's how the structure would look like. So it's tools, resources, and prompts. And that is what makes MCP powerful. It makes the model act it for accessing the context and follow a structured workflow, right, without custom integrations or plugins or the extensions. So that's how the MCP is so powerful. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Right, as I talked about the tools, right? So this is mainly a function. You consider it as like a function in your usual coding, right? Which gives a call. So here the LLMs will give a call to this function called tools to perform certain actions. Basically, a function call you can call it, and think of them as a model's way of interacting with the real world, right? Beyond text generation. So the key points that I want you to notice is that tools allow the AI to perform specific actions, like just like a function calling in a code. So that what are those specific actions, right? It could include anything like sending emails, updating to-dos, running tests, or debugging your code. So certain actions. So for that, we write a particular function, which is now called as tool in the language of MCP. And this is one of the very important component of MCP, right? Now, coming to the tools user controls. So, users can control these tools as they are available per chat, right? Now, I just showed you the GHCP chat. There is a way you can access the tools. I'll be showing this in the demo as well, how you can access your tools for the MCP. What it will do is it will reduce the reuse of, it will basically help us reuse the task specific tools, right? If your workflows are set, you can just go ahead and choose the tools that you want for a specific task. If you know that this is the task that you want to perform, so you just select the tool and you ask and you let the MCP do the magic, right? Because MCP will know that this is the only tool that they have to look into to give you the right response based on your prompt. Next comes your resources. um, this, as I said, the resources is the second major capability of MCP. It's basically something like read-only data, right? Because AI can access through well-defined URIs. That's how it accesses the resources. And think of resources as like structured. It's more safe because it's only read-only, reference-only piece of information that the client or the agent can access, and or the user can expose to the model, right? They are extremely useful when you want the model to use real project or system data, but you don't want to modify anything, so you just want to give the access based on only the read only information, right? So that's where resources come into picture, and these resources could be anything. It could be files, it could be documents, it could be your database entries or schemas or images, right? So all of this is made available to the model in a consistent read only format, right? So the model can fetch, it can browse, interpret the data without performing any write action. So that's how the selection of resources. So basically, all how you select the resources, everything I would be showing in the demo again. Yeah, so different use cases of resources, mainly to reduce the response tokens, right? Because we don't want the agent to look for the response everywhere, right? So if you kind of predefine, or if you limit the range of the research, that will definitely reduce the response token. Secondly is expose the data and files to user and attaches context. I'll also show you, how you can attach, for example, if you want the agent to look or debug the code only for a specific file of your code, you can just add context here. So that's how you tell the agent that this is the only specific area you look into and give me the response accordingly. So these are the different use cases for the resources. Next comes to the prompt. I think this is a um, very important part of it, because the agent tries to convert, because you give the prompts in the natural language, right? So your agent should be able to process that natural language for you. You ask what is the version of Python, and this agents give you the response. But how the agent knows, right? The natural language processing capability that is actually given by your LLM, right? And here in the context of MCP, what we want to show is the predefined template capability of the prompts, because we don't want users to do the prompting every now and then if there are fixed a fixed workflow of your task. So that's where this predefined templates come in, basically to explicitly, which is explicitly invoked by the user. For example, whenever a user needs the AI to perform a repeated workflow, right, as I was saying, like generating documentation, or it could be refactoring your code, or it could be summarizing files, reviewing your PRs, so they can invoke one of these templates instead of just typing everything from scratch. So that's where this prompts in the context of MCP would come into picture. So couple of things: static presets. So again, these are like the fixed prompt templates that don't change. For example, summarize this file, generate the unit test cases. So these are something called as strict static presets in the context of prompts. Then you have reusable with placeholders. What would this mean? So many prompts include placeholders. I'll show you that how it happens in the upcoming code demo. So when you have placeholders, these placeholders are filled in by the parameter or the input that you provide. So that's how these templates are created. So we could have those reusable placeholders whenever we want to have such predefined templates. So that is what about the placeholders. And then you have something called as dynamically regenerated. So prompts can also be created on the fly based on context, like when editing files or running tools, or working in agent mode, right? This lets the AI build task specific templates automatically to guide to guide on its own, right? It's a multi-step action. So that's how the AI would build in on these templates. So we will look at this also in the demo, the tools, resources, and the prompts. Couple of use cases, we will be seeing that more in the demo. So I think the next slide is about demo. So let's look into that, right? And let's try to understand, when I was saying these three parts of MCP, which is a tool, resources, and prompt, how they actually look in, right? So let me go back to the VS code, or maybe let me have one check, uh, and let me see if there are any comments. Um, I would request folks, you can start putting in your questions if you have any doubts or so. I will look at them as and when I get some gap, right? So we can look at those queries. Okay, let's go back. Before that, I will also show you something which is yeah. So the part of the demo that we are going to do, you will find it as your part to study buddy read only file. So this is again the walkthrough of the project setup, so I will not much deep dive into this. So this is where this starts from. So the very first thing is your MCP server configuration, and you do that under the folder called .vs code. So this will be part of the same repository. So you have .vs code, and you would have a file under this folder called mcp.json, right? This is the file where you actually define uh, how many MCP servers you are going to work with. Now here, if you see as an, let me just close this. If you see here, there is this, for this particular demo, we will be only dealing with one MCP server, which is Learn Python MCP, because we are going to see how this Study Buddy app works. And this server, this is the one MCP server that we are going to deal with. The next arguments that you see, because it's going to run within your VNV, right, your virtual environment, and it needs to find the uv.exe file. So you just give it the path to where you have installed your uv. So I have it within my virtual environment, within the scripts. So you have your uv.exe. So I've just given the path there, and you have certain arguments. So it's important that for when you define your MCP server, from where it needs to know, right, which MCP server it needs to run. So the very first thing that we are going to run is your prompts. We'll first look at the prompts, and then the tools, and then the resources. The very first thing that I want to show is the prompt server.py. So this is where we will see the template of how you can have a predefined prompt. If you look at this code, I will just give a very quick overview. You import your fast MCP, because this is going to act as one of your MCP server. And then you define your MCP server, that this is the MCP server you want to create. And you have the decorators. Like, this is very important, right? When you want to define how your prompt needs to work, so this you define that under the decorator called mcp.prompt. And you are defining, right, because the prompt that we are going to ask is define the topics for the beginner level. For example, if I give this prompt, it should be able to know that what it needs to kind of generate. So we will look at that. So if you look here, generate 5 Python topics based on the fundamentals to complex. And this is totally dependent on the levels, right? And as I said, now this will act as your MCP server. So for this to happen, we just copy the file name. We go to mcp.json file, where we actually define or run or trigger the MCP, right? So we need to replace the file name. So I'll just go ahead and replace it, right? So now you have your prompts underscore server.py. So you just changed the path, and then now you just do all you do is start your MCP server, right? So if you see, it has started running the or maybe I'll just do a restart once again. So if you see, you are able to see the logs. Basically, it is able to run your MCP server. And if you look at the, it says you have a prompt, correct? Um, just give me one moment. Right now, how you want to take it is you go to GHCP. Now your MCP server is running, correct? All you need to do is you give a slash, you select the MCP server. Correct. So it says MCP learn Python and Python topics, because the prompt that you are gonna generate is basically to generate some Python topics based on the level that you are in. So when I loaded this, if you see here towards the very top, it is asking me to pass a parameter. So the parameter it is asking is the level. So let's say if I say I'm at the beginner level, and I just pressed enter. So if you look, it automatically generated a prompt for me. So it says generate 5 Python topics for someone new to programming, numbered from most fundamental to most complex. After listing the topics, if you would like to try exercises for any. So this is that predefined prompt that I was talking about. So you just run that MCP server, you call that MCP server, you just pass the parameter, and you have the predefined prompt given by the MCP to you, and you just go ahead and pass it to your GHCP. Now the GHCP is actually thinking, right, what it exactly needs to do with the prompt that you have given. Now if you see here, it has generated the Python topics for you. So there are the 5 topics that you see here, right? So this happened because you had that predefined prompt, but it's not something that you have to do with the predefined only. You can also write it saying give me a set of Python topics for the beginner level. So if you even give this as a prompt, it will able to connect to this MCP server, which is the prompt server.py, and it will able to generate this output for you, right? So basically your client, your GHCP is able to connect to the MCP server prompts.server, because the prompt is basically trying to have a context only related to the prompts, right, to only develop the Python topics. Now, next is your tools. So let's go to the tools, right? So if you go to toolserver.py, this is the next thing that we want to look at. Again, this is also calling some of the packages. One of the important packages again is the fast MCP. This is something very similar to we just what we saw in the last run, which is your only for the prompt. Here in this particular exercise, we would be trying to generate some exercises, right, Python exercises based on your level. Again, it could be either beginner, or it could be intermediate, or it could be your advanced level. So again, decorators are very important to define what exactly you want to define under each of these criteria, right? And this is what I want to touch base upon, with the mcp.tool. So mcp.tool, this is the decorator that would be used for defining tools. Now, if you look at the definitions, it is trying to define 2 tools. One is your generate and create exercises tool, and second is second tool that you have here. It's under the next decorator, which is the list of exercises. So we will see how this will actually give you the output. So this is another MCP server that we are going to use. So let me just copy this, go back to the mcp.json, right? This is where you actually define your MCP server, how many MCP servers you want to use. So this is all you can do a lot of experiments with this POC, right? When you experiment, you try to put in more MCP servers. This is just one example that I'm giving, but you can put in your own list of MCP servers. You can define more tools, you can define more prompts. That's how you can practice, right? This will give you an idea how things work in different aspects or in different conditions. Now going back, I will just replace it with the tools underscore server.py. So this is your MCP server for tools, and I'll just go ahead and restart the MCP server. So let's give it a minute. Okay, I haven't saved it. Okay, let me just start it again. Right, this is what I wanted to show. So we just saw in the tools server.py, right? That there was one prompt that was defined, and there were 2 tools that is defined under this MCP server. So the 2 tools were, one is generate your exercises, second was to list all the exercises. So let me go to GHCP again, and I will try to call one of the tool. Maybe let's just call this tool. which is your generate exercises. So we are now going to call this particular tool. And if you see, the very first thing that it asks as an input parameter is the topic. So maybe I could just choose any one of the topic, right, which it earlier had responded me with. So maybe I'll just take this variables and data types, and I'll just paste this as an input parameter. And then again, next value, so there are two parameters that you need to pass. So second is your beginner, so I'll just mentioned as beginner. And yeah, see, it generated that prompt for you. You see, generate 5 Python exercises. So this is where that placeholder that I was talking about, right, it replaced the topic value for you based on the input that you provided. And then it will try to give it in basically in this format, and it's for beginner again. So let's just go ahead and prompt it. Yeah, so it's giving you the response in the JSON format, because in your prompt you did ask it in the JSON format. So that's the reason. But let's say if you want to even look at it in a normal format or so, so maybe give the response in normal format instead of JSON. Let's see. See, so the earlier JSON format, let me maybe give it this way. So if you see, it used the MCP tool, generate exercises. Basically, your agent. So when I say agent again and again, it's your GHCP, the client, right? It got the context that it needs to use the MCP server called um, um, uh, your prompts, or not the prompts, sorry, the tool servers, right? That's the MCP server for you right now. And it was able to generate the output, right? So now it's able to generate the exercises based on the value or the topic that you provided, and that too for the beginner level. So these are the different exercises. If you see, it was able to generate it for you, correct? So that's what I was talking about, the tool, right? The tools that I used here was to generate exercises. So a client got a context, okay, I need to use this tool to generate my responses. And if you see, when I actually executed this server, when I ran this server, it was able to list the number of tools and prompts that is defined in that MCP server. So we used one of the tool out of that. So I think we have covered the tool part. um, Another thing that I also wanted to cover was on the resources. So if you go to resources, that will be next MCP server we would be looking at. Let me close this and maybe close this also. Um, right, again, this is the third this would be the third part of it that we'll be looking at, is that the resources. If you see, this again is using your MCP import, and then it also has your decorator MCP dot resources. This is where you actually define where it needs to go and access the data. Now, if you look at the file paths, as I said, it could be any file, it could be any database that it go ahead and look for the data. Um, there are two JSON files which it is considering as your data source. So one is your study progress.json. So this is where your study progress.json comes, and we have some values defined. We will look at that when we run the output. And then if you go back to resources server.json.py, so you have another JSON file which is beginner exercises. So consider this as a database, right? in this demo we have a JSON file, but it could actually connect to a real database also. And you can refine your code basically to connect to the database actual and try to get the data from these data sources. So here it is trying to gain the data from these JSON files, which is kind of defined. You have the different exercises. Now going back to the resources server.py, um, here again I'll just copy the name of the file and I'll go to our main file, which is mcp.json. I'll just replace this with your resources server.py. So now if you'll see, it is trying to ask me to start the MCP server. See, it has only one tool, but then if you look at the resources, browse resources. So it has two resources defined: get study progress and list exercises for all the levels. I'll show you how it looks like. If you go back to here, so you have two resources defined here. One is get study progress. We'll look at that when we see the output. And we have another resource to list all the exercises for any level. It could be beginner or the other ones. So I'll maybe I'll maybe show output for both of them. So now that we have our tool running, MCP server running, I'll just open the our GitHub Copilot and I'll mention get the study progress for a user, or maybe I can say Swati. So I'm just um, setting the context. So it says get, do you want to get the study progress for the user, Swati? So I'll just allow it. So if you see here, one good thing, it's running the, we just saw, right, the definition of what we are, which resource we are. So it's calling the resource get resource users progress. And this is the MCP server that it is trying to access. So that is, this is what we have been trying to do, right? We want the client to understand that MCPs, that how it needs to get the context from the MCP server based on the prompt that you provide. So I given the prompt as get the study progress for Swati, and it was able to use this MCP server to get the context. So yeah, see, this is what we have. We have the study progress for Swati. We have the level as beginner, and there are a lot of suggested topics as well. So this is the output that the MCP server responded with. Another one maybe prompt that we can look at is list all exercises. We just saw two resources, right? So I just want to give how it would look like for beginner level, right? List all except for beginner level. Let's see. See, it just it understood that it needs to go and fetch the data from your a data source based on the context. Right now the context that it was able to get is it will use um, it will use the other resource, right? We had two resources. One is your get study progress, and second is list exercise for level. So it was able to use this resource. It understood from based on the context, right? So this is very important, right? And again, the prompt engineering becomes a very important factor here, that how you provide your prompt. Because just saying on the fly, just giving a prompt won't help, but you need to give a bit of context also for the agent to understand and deep dive into from where it needs to fetch the response for you. So I think good. I think we covered the three main parts which I wanted to show. And if I go to the terminal real quick, right? We also have something called as server part 2. This will actually run your entire app for you, right? This includes everything: your prompts, your resources, your prompts, right? Your tools, your resources. Everything is defined in one single place, and basically this is going to act as that app which I was talking about, which is a study buddy app. So what we'll do is, first thing, we'll just change, since this is merged part of your MCP, we'll just replace this within your, let it just load your MCP server. We'll see, right? Four tools, two prompts, and we have multiple resources as well. Okay, now let's do one thing. We will now run the application, the actual interactive app. This is something you can also do once you get a time to do some POCs. So what we'll do is, so I have the command ready, so I'll just, for the sake of saving some time, we are, I think, already a little behind the schedule. So what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to run the Study Buddy app. I'm passing two parameters, which is the username, basically who is actually using this app, and then I'm setting the level as beginner. So if I just load this, you see it has become an interactive Study Buddy app now, right? It is giving me a list of available beginner exercises, and in the background, it is just going to the right MCP server and tools, and just trying to get the responses for you. So if I just say, okay, I just want to go with the very first exercise, which is age classifier, I want a hint, yes. Maybe here, you anyone who is trying to use this app and trying to develop their coding skills can maybe just write the solution here. So I just say, this is my Python solution, and ready to see the solution, maybe yes. And see, it has given you the solution, right, to how you do the the logic for the age classification. And this is just an interactive app. The main idea behind this is to see, to show you that how it is selecting the right tool for you based on your prompt, or based on the input that you're giving. And did you just complete this exercise? Yes. And maybe no. So yeah, this is giving you the summary. So this is what I wanted to take you through from the entire Study Buddy app. So please try this out. You have everything, all the details available in this in this study materials. So go through this, try to execute this run, and um, try to get a bit of idea of how you can build your own MCP servers, right? So good. I think time check. We are already on time. We have to cover some more slides, important slides. Let me go back to the slide again. Right. So this is basically a flow that I wanted to show is, this is where your host is and your client is. Your host was VS Code. We just saw how when we were running the MCP servers, the client was your GitHub Copilot, right? And how it tries to connect to the MCP server. So in the example that we just saw, the MCP server was hosted on my local machine itself. It will try to connect some data sources. It could be your local database, or it could be your files within your storage. Then it could be via APIs. It can try to connect to the databases outside through some APIs. Another important point of it is, right, you can host your MCP server not just locally, right? There are many platforms where you can host it. It could be remotely, right? So we call it as a remote server. But where are these remote servers? It could be your Azure function app. It could be your Azure app service. It could be your container apps, right? And in enterprise scenario, you will actually get a chance to host these MCP servers onto your Azure platform using any of these resources. And these are very well reliable in today's business enterprise scalable solutions. So look at the opportunities, to explore this side as well of developing your own MCP servers. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So there are many real world examples which you can consider, but the very one that we will talk about today is the Microsoft Learn MCP server, right? This is Microsoft's own product, where um, this is very fantastic. I'll show you how we can even get that included to your VS Code. But Learn MCP server is basically remote MCP server again, that will allow your AI agents, which is GHCP in my case, to tap directly into your official Microsoft product, right? The official Microsoft documentations. So your development environment will get a direct access to your Microsoft documentations while you develop your code. Because not every now and then you want to just leave your development environment and go to web page and search for documentations. You can just ask your agent, it will go directly to the official site, get the knowledge base for you, and give you the right response based on the context, right? That's where this Learn MCP server came into picture. And it's an absolute great tool or an extension that you could use while you are on your VS Code. So if you want to see, I can show you that real quick. So I'll just close this, maybe expand this a bit. So if you see here, these are the MCP servers installed in my VS Code. So the very one that we just were discovering in the demo. The other one is the Microsoft Learn. This is the one I was talking about, right? Um, Amazing tool. If you are researching anything about a Microsoft product, this MCP server will do the right magic. Let me go back to my PPT. So this is an example, right? So if you look at here, so um, look at this specific example, right? How using Learning MCP server. Developers can use this Learn MCP server within the Visual Studio, as I just showed you. Here, the developer has prompted a question how securely it can deploy a containerized app to Azure using Bicep and GitHub Actions, of course. So here, the agent, firstly, if you see, breaks that down into two parts. One is it will use the documentation search tool. If you could see, that's it is running that Microsoft Doc search for you, and it is trying to split it to search the context in two bits of it. One is your container apps security and Bicep template. So it will try to split your prompt, yeah, right, into multiple bits. And coming to the next okay, coming to the next part. So after it kind of splits your prompt into to basically assess your prompt into multiple aspects, it will try to create files for you, because this is the actual implementation part, right? Because you are asking for the actual code, the Bicep code for you to work on it. So the your client will, your GitHub Copilot actually creates the file and gives you those files to work on. Next, after retrieving, the AI agent, as I said, goes to the implementation part of it. And once the agent has assembled the solution for you, it provides a quick summary of what it did exactly, right? How did it go to the data source, try to search the solution, build the solution. It gives you a summary so that you yourself can help understand as a developer the outcome and reasoning behind each step. And this summary will actually confirm how the pattern was implemented, so that the user can go and verify each of the step that was done, that was performed by this GitHub Copilot, right? And that's the magic of MCP, right? It gives you that transparency. This is what the slide talks about, right? It gives you the transparency when you ask the agent also, right? Describe how it used the tools. How did you use the tools to find the solution? See, the agent will clearly lay it out for you, right? It will say the initial research phase that it used, what are the key areas that it searched for, then how it influenced your implementation, what are the different URLs, documentation URLs it referred. I think that transparency that the MCP brings in, I think that is one of a great part of MCP, so that it is allowing you as a developer you get assurance of what is being developed, and you can use that with all the confidence, right? And that's where the transparency comes in. Okay, the next part is building an MCP. I've already given the link to this as well. And one important thing is we would be doing this in Python only, and this will be also a very similar demo, I would say. But I will show you how it works end to end. But before that, I also want to show the different SDKs that you can use to build your own MCP server. So it could be Java, C Sharp, Python, JavaScript. So these are the official SDKs for your MCP compatibility. Okay, let's go and jump to the demo of building your MCP server. Now let me also take you to the third part of the demo. This is again a good documentation that's provided for you to execute this. So the MCP server that we are going to build is AI Research Learning Hub. So this is another MCP server which will, I'll show you in the mcp.json. We were just dealing with one MCP server so far, but now you will see a couple more MCP servers and how it actually changes the context based on the MCP server that it needs to actually use. And if you look at the structure, right, we have a folder in this repository called AI Research Hub, which consists of these files. um, what these each files does is clearly defined. So instead of the database, we are using the JSON data source here. So if you see, this is the local resource database. Your actual main MCP server implementation would be within server.py, and your JSON file. This is another paper manager file, which is like a which is like friendly code. Basically it's a support code for your server.py to actually do the data management from your JSON files. So again, we have this. So this is the actual mcp.json code which you could use to use these MCP servers. So right, you have your Hugging Face. So this is one of the data source. Then you have GitHub. Then you have third MCP server called AI Research Hub. So you would be using three MCP servers. So what I'll just do is I'll just go back to my code, right? And let me just close this. So let me just put in the code here. All I want to do is just save as much as time as possible. Right. So let's start each of these servers. Right now, I have the Hugging Face MCP server, I have GitHub, I have AI Search Research Hub. This is the main MCP server, but it will also give a call to the other MCP servers because this will act as a source of your research papers, right? So I'll just go ahead and start. And one other thing, it when you actually run this MCP servers for Hugging Face and GitHub, it will actually ask you for the authentication. Ensure you have a GitHub and a Hugging Face account. I do have it already, and I have the authentication already enabled. So it will ask you to authenticate. So just go through that process. Is pretty much easy. Or you can go to the same README file and just try to see what is required. But then on a high level, yes, this is what we need. So if you see, we have multiple tools, multiple prompts under each of these MCP servers, right? Um, Now, what exactly it is doing, right? Let me go back to the server.py. So again, here there are multiple tools defined for you. So you have tools such as research topic. So you give a topic, it will go ahead and search, what are the different tracking papers, research papers available for that topic. It will give you the output. Similarly, you have multiple other tools like GitHub research searches and add papers. So I will not go tool by tool in here. I will just completely execute this MCP server. Will call the MCP server from your GitHub Copilot. All I will say is slash, and I will call this MCP server, right? This is the one. Okay, so it is asking you as for an input, which is a topic, which is your any of the topic that you want to go ahead with. So I will be going ahead with, maybe I'll just ask them for a few short learning topic. So I'll just press enter. So see, it automatically came up with that predefined prompt template for you. You can just review the prompt and just give a go ahead. See, it's processing, right? Your client is processing of what exactly the user is trying to ask. It is creating some to dos. See, it's triggering the tool research topic. That was one of the tool that we saw in the AI research hub MCP server. So we'll just allow it to run that tool for you. So if you just um, expand this, you will see the output, right? It gives you the output. What research topic did it provide to it? It's in the JSON format because your prompt defined prompt was in the JSON format. But if you see, right, it's trying to call the MCP servers, right, based on your prompt. So if you look in here, it's again asking me, do you want to get GitHub searches? So this is another tool that we just saw. So again, with the same input that you had provided, and you go ahead and just allow it, then it will try to trigger that server for you. So on a whole, the idea is based, here we used a predefined prompt, but you can also go ahead with prompts like get me some research papers for the topic, right? So these are the different prompts also that you can use, instead of going, if you don't want to go with the predefined templated prompts, right? And as I said, there would be these tools are running in the backend for the MCP server for you to get the right context. So yes, this was on a whole. This is how you can build your own MCP server, right? Just go ahead and play ahead with tools. You can add more tools to it. You can add more prompts, more interesting prompts. You know how it is more user friendly from a prompt perspective, right? This is how you can experiment and try to bring in more data source, more complicated data source, establish that connectivity from the MCP. So there is a lot to play around. So just explore. You have Microsoft documentations available around this. It will, I would be sharing some links towards the end, and it will really help you build your own MCP server. And not just with Python, you can go ahead and use multiple other SDKs, right? You have C sharp, you have Java. So just go ahead and do some experimentation, right? And that would really help. I think we are very much I've already taken additional 20 minutes. I'll just close it very quick, and we'll take at the Q&A. um so this is something I really wanted to touch base upon, how Microsoft is really empowering the solution of MCP, right? Because at Microsoft, we are all in on MCP. We have the MCP has totally revolutionized um, agentic workflows, accelerating them faster than anything we have seen before. And MCP seamlessly enables integration between your AI applications and external data sources, right? It provides a very secure and robust framework for creating such dynamic and responsive solution, because your prompts are dynamic, right? Your responsive solutions plays a very important role. And when you are building a MCP locally or remote, it could be anything, right? But Microsoft here is there to support you. We have collaborated with Anthropic, and the .NET community is to develop the official C# SDK, right? Opening up with the possibilities of MCPs to our millions of .NET developers and others as well. And um, MCP tools are designed to accelerate productivity for your agentic workflows, because today it's all about agent, how you use it, how you want to effectively get your productivity increased, right? When you are in a customer or a developer environment, Microsoft is fully invested in MCP. We have launched several flagship MCPs across Azure, GitHub, and Windows in collaboration with Anthropic. We are trying to foster an MCP ecosystem, and that is discoverable through a community registry on GitHub, which I'll be talking up in the next slide. We also There's also a lot from an MCP point of view, like it's very significant in productivity gains across various Microsoft applications, from Azure to GitHub and Windows. And MCPs are integrated into our core platforms, enhancing a lot of capabilities when it comes to the AI applications, right? So in a summary, Microsoft's commitment to MCP and our collaboration with Anthropic is really driving this growth and evolution of this protocol, right? We are really dedicated in providing the tools and support needed to build and deploy MCPs. And um, there is a lot of resources that Microsoft has invested in, and I think it's really a good opportunity to use them for your AI journey. And really, it has got a full potential to kind of have this transformative technology today, right? So yeah, the one that I was talking about, the GitHub registry, right? This is your official community registry. You can just go in and type github.com/mcp. Please go through this community site and explore the different MCP servers and tools that the community has developed. And I think it's very important to not just develop your own MCP server. It is also important how you reuse these existing assets, right? Because these assets are already in place and is available to you on this community center. So it's important that you reuse them so that you build it more effectively, right? You have a lot of Microsoft is really supporting in giving this view of the different assets it has got. And I think just go ahead and explore this registry. It's really helpful. Some of the key pointers that it was launched in September 2025 and all those things. But please go ahead and explore this. It's really good if you are on the journey of MCP, right? So yes, it's a wrap up, guys. And to summarize that, MCP do enable seamless integration with LLMs and the real AI eco world system, right? I strongly recommend that you explore MCP, experiment building servers, and think about the agentic flows, right? How you can improve your development experiences. So just go through these, some of these. I have these links. I'm sure the team would be sharing it with you. So you have different tools to explore. Please go through these resources. Dive into your journey of AI, and MCP is definitely the first stop that you want to look at. So thank you, everybody. I think it was really great. And thanks for the opportunity, ADC. I would really love to hear some feedback. So this is the link. If not, then you can at least scan the QR code, and please share your valuable feedbacks. I would really want to know, because um, hopefully we could have a part two as well. So thank you, everybody. I will also look at the Q&A now. I'll just keep the screen for a minute if people want to scan and share your feedback. Just another 1 minute, and then I'll look quickly wrap it up in next 4 minutes. I'll wrap it the Q&As. Okay, let me go back to the screen. Um, Yes, if we don't have any questions, we can close the stream. I think thank you everyone. It was really nice, and wish you all a very happy new year if we don't talk again, and see you in the next AI season. Yeah, thank you.